Oh my God, here we go again. Men talking about stuff that's gonna help them be free. This is an Infinium podcast, which is entitled Protect What Is Rightfully Yours at All Costs. Protect what is rightfully yours at all costs? What does that mean? Oh my God, I just wish I could get these men to just shut up.
My brothers, welcome to the 8th edition of the Infinium podcast. And as always, my brothers, thank you for listening to my content as well as supporting my content and considering it of some worth in your walk along the MGTOW pathway, the pathway that saves our lives as MGTOW men in every way possible. Now, my brothers, I want to talk to you about what is rightfully yours at all costs, and that is essentially your freedom as well as peace. Now, you may say, Infinium, that is a obvious goal of being a MGTOW man. And yes, that is true. That is an obvious goal. But my brothers, the obvious goal, as with anything, is not a simple statement of protecting what is yours at all costs. And it is just like saying that you are a MGTOW, but again, your lifestyle does not reflect what a MGTOW should be. So in other words, if you are saying that you are a MGTOW man just for the heck of it, so to speak, that is something that will cause you problems down the road. So what I'm trying to do here is to create understanding and awareness about what you are dealing with, the things that you are dealing with as MGTOW man, because the MGTOW lifestyle itself is not one of simplicity, so to speak. It can be simplistic in terms of how you live that lifestyle, in terms of living minimalistic, like you have a cabin in the woods and you are content with that. But again, that type of condition, it costs you. It costs you in terms of investing in what you need to do. And that is, again, protecting your freedom and your peace at all costs, my brothers. So getting into protecting your freedom and peace, there is a number of things that are going on in terms of the MGTOW philosophy itself, in terms of our embracement of the philosophy. All these types of things are going on. Now, of course, there is the ongoing persecution of we MGTOW men, that we are being told we are the problem. We are the ones that are causing the issues throughout society, the issues within the society that we are living in. And that society is, of course, the feminist plantation state. If you are a MGTOW man who is living in a westernized society, you are essentially living within the feminist plantation state. And to some degree, if it is a non-westernized society, you have some aspects of the feminist plantation state being injected into that society nevertheless. So either way, you are either living fully within the feminist plantation state or you are living within a society which is in the initial stages of being infested by the feminist plantation state. But let's set that aside for a moment and look at some granular things that are going on. Now, of course, your right to be free and to have peace in your life as a MGTOW man is in great conflict as well as contradiction to what is desired of you by the feminist plantation state. So again, that is a point right there. That is a overall layer of what is happening to we MGTOW men. The mere fact that you, we as MGTOW men are going our own way and we are seeking our freedom as well as peace, that is a point of great contention with the feminist plantation state. If you dive deeper, the overall layer of your freedom and peace represents a tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of everything about you that can be controlled and must be controlled by the feminist plantation state. So it can get down to a granular level of the very air that you breathe as a MGTOW man, because of the mere fact that the feminist plantation state, the FPS, considers you to be a slave with no rights. So when it comes to the overall layer, the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of your freedom and peace, you have no right to that freedom and peace. So beneath that layer, it is again every aspect of your life that is in contention with the feminist plantation state if you are a man who is going his own way. So again, it could get down to the level, for example, of the way you go to the bathroom. That's how bad it is. That's how much the feminist plantation state wants to control your life. Because again, slaves in the eyes of the feminist plantation state have no right to be free. They have no right to have peace. They have no right to dictate even the way they go to the bathroom. And at this point, you may say, Infinium, you're being kind of paranoid when it gets into things like the way you go to the bathroom and what you do in the bathroom, so to speak. But my brothers, if you look at it like this, you could be in a relationship with a woman, and because of feminism, because of her need to dominate you, because of what gives her unparalleled power to dominate you, that being the FPS, you could be married to a woman who deems you as a partner, not a husband. And because you are a partner, your time in the bathroom, if it offends her, she could say something about it. She can control you. She could harass you about how much you spend time in the bathroom, that you should not spend XYZ time in the bathroom. You need to be quicker about what you're doing. And my brothers, that's what can happen to you because of, again, the need for feminism, the FPS, women in general, to dominate and control our lives to a degree where it is granular, where it is every aspect of our lives. Now, if you look at things even further, there is the aspect of what is happening to women aside from their need to control we men, either if they are feminists or not. And again, if they are feminists or not, it does not matter. They have great control over our lives due to the FPS, the infrastructure of the FPS. Now, if you again look at what is happening to women, first of all, with feminism is a destructive ideology in every way possible. And what it is doing to women is overall causing them to be hive-minded zombies who follow a ideology which is destroying every aspect of their lives. Now, some of the particular aspects of their lives is the ability to nurture, is the ability to be empathetic to the men who they are in relationship with, like for instance, husbands, all those types of things. Those abilities have been corrupted because of feminism, because of what feminism is doing to women. So when it comes to things like nurturing and empathy, because of the corruption of feminism, has transformed the average woman into a woman who rejects the notions of nurturing and empathy for any man who she is in relationship with. As a result, she becomes antecedent to being a woman who would encourage her husband, do right by her husband, make sure that he is taken care of as he is going out and doing what he needs to do, uplifting him, taking care of him. And because of her empathy, she knows how to, quote unquote, bind up his wounds, so to speak. But because of feminism, the capability of a woman to nurture and to have empathy has been corrupted to the extent that both nurturing and empathy have been turned into tactical weapons that women use upon us to basically to control us and if necessary to destroy us. So in other words, wonderful capabilities which are geared towards helping men, geared towards uplifting men, have been corrupted to the degree by feminism such that they have become tactical weapons against men. And so you have conditions where husbands work all day and they come home to a wife that gets mad at them because they plop down on the couch and fall asleep, and they have a wife that is screaming and yelling at them that they are not doing enough, even though they have worked a 12 to 18-hour day with all the pressures of that day, only to come home to a wife who is berating them, kicking their butt, so to speak, threatening to call the police on them because they are not, in the wife's opinion, doing enough, that they are lazy, that they are the ones that are deadbeats, so to speak, and it's the wife that is doing all the work, so to speak. Now, just looking at the overall ability of a woman, and this is any woman, feminist or not, because of feminism, to take nurturing and empathy and turn them into tactical weapons. It becomes then a part of their feminine energy. Now, you may see, my brothers, women out there now who are saying men are weak because they will not engage with them. They will not have that feminine energy in their lives. And they are weak. They are boys. They are incels, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And of course, as MGTOW men, it becomes even more intense in terms of the criticism, in terms of our quote unquote inability to stand up to that feminine energy. That is what that is talking about. The ability to take nurturing empathy and turn them into tactical weapons wherein women can control your life, control your emotions, get you to be worked up, so to speak, have you running around, shit test you, all types of things. That's what that is talking about. Those two components alone are, again, tactical weapons, which become a component of the feminine energy, which you will see women increasingly embracing, attacking men who are walking away from them in general, and in particular attacking men who are MGTOWs and who have determined that they will stay on the MGTOW pathway for the foreseeable future. That is where that condemnation is coming from. That is the standpoint of where that condemnation is coming from. That men are weak because they will not have this feminine energy in their lives. And my brothers, that is again a component of why you must protect your freedom and peace at all costs. Other negative aspects of that feminine energy, aside from using nurturing and empathy as tactical weapons, are considerations of high degrees of narcissism among women, which in itself derives high degrees of hypocrisy as well as cowardice among women, which these are some of the components of why women will not take accountability for their actions and why women need we men to take accountability for their actions. Now, if you go even further, there is the overall desperation of women in general. And again, it is not just feminists, it is all women, because what is going on with feminism, what is going on with the feminist plantation state is affecting all women. So you have, as we men are aware of, the types of losses that women are facing right now. And my brothers, those losses are vast and varied in nature. And the types of losses are, in some cases, incomprehensible in nature. And within those types of losses, there is the ongoing effort, which is hypocritical, in my opinion, to normalize those losses, like having HIV or herpes and claiming that it is normal to have those types of diseases, that it is normal to have high student loan debts, that it is normal to have evictions, that it is normal to have car repos. You have all these things going on, my brothers. And that again is a part of the quote-unquote feminine energy that you, I, we as MGTOW men are being demanded upon to have in our lives. And why these demands are being placed upon us by feminists, the feminist plantation state, and women in general is, again, because of the hypocrisy of what they feel we should be invested in versus what we really need to invest in. Now, when it comes from the standpoint of women, our investment should be into that feminine energy, taking care of the problems, taking care of what they need, being slaves to them. We have no right, again, as men to say no to that in their view because, again, of feminism. When it comes to a MGTOW man, the investment, of course, is freedom and peace. And so that is diametrically opposed to what feminism demands of we men, the feminist plantation state, and women in general demand of us. So, my brothers, what I'm getting at is this. What you do as a MGTOW man not only is a statement of your lifestyle, saying that you are a MGTOW man, it is also what you invest in terms of your freedom and peace. That is why you must protect what is rightfully yours at all costs. Your lifestyle as a MGTOW man, your overall life as a MGTOW man is an investment in your freedom and peace. And when you look at things that way, everything you do as a MGTOW man is an investment in what brings you freedom and peace. So, for example, if you, as a MGTOW man, because you do not have a woman in your life and your focus and goal is on having freedom and peace, that means that you have the freedom to engage in activities which bring you peace. And those activities, because of the need to protect what is rightfully yours, come under the umbrella of protecting your freedom and peace. So, for example, if you have a hobby as a MGTOW man, which brings you peace, which brings you fulfillment, which just helps you, that hobby needs to be protected. And so what I'm getting at, my brothers, is this. There is going to be increased activity from feminists, the feminist plantation state, and women in general to interfere with and infiltrate in anything and everything that you are doing. So getting back to a hobby, even if it's something innocuous, like you go down to the local coffee shop and you take a book with you to read and just have enjoyment of reading that book while you're sipping on a cup of coffee, that activity can be seen by the feminist plantation state, feminists, and women in general as an improper investment, as a waste of their time, because you should not be in that coffee shop alone and reading a book as a hobby. You should be invested in some way in a woman's life, in her BS, so to speak. Now, just sticking with the example of a hobby, my brothers, don't be misled into thinking that a hobby is too difficult for a woman to either interfere with or to infiltrate into. Now, take, for example, the ham radio hobby. I am a ham radio operator, and for the longest time, I thought that this particular hobby, because of the technical aspects of this hobby, that it would be nearly impossible for women to either interfere with me as a ham radio operator or to infiltrate into my life as a ham radio operator. But my brothers, as I've seen in the past few months, it is very possible for that to happen, where a woman could interfere with or infiltrate into even a ham radio operator's life. Now, if you look at the ham radio hobby itself, it is not just a bunch of men and some women that are true ham radio operators, but it is not just a bunch of people per se with a bunch of radios. There are aspects about the hobby which are highly technical. You're talking about various modes of radio communication. You're talking about types of things that are being done with radio technology, radio communications, which is in some cases highly technical. Now, because of the aspects of the technology involved, the types of understanding that you have to have as a ham radio operator, how to operate on the air, how to do certain things, how to program radios, all these types of things, you may be misled as a man because of, again, the very few women who are in the hobby and yourself having to deal with the technologies and deal with all of these things. You may be misled into thinking meaning that there is no way that a woman could interfere with or infiltrate into your life as a ham radio operator. But my brothers, again, yes, it can happen. And one of the ways that it can happen is through what I have discussed in prior podcasts and bits of my content, through a bridging tactic, when a woman who sees that you are a ham radio operator and sees the need for her to either interfere with your life or infiltrate into your life, or both, she goes out and finds out various details about the hobby where she can enamor you and build, of course, a bridge to get into your life to get at what she wants. Now, you have to look at things this way. Just like your freedom and peace as a MGTOW man being an investment, which is of great importance, what falls under that investment umbrella is, of course, your hobby. And in my case, it is the ham radio hobby. So you have to look at it like this. Instead of my freedom and peace being invested in a woman's BS, so to speak, it is invested in taking care of me, taking care of my life, taking care of my overall life. Now, under the umbrella of that investment of my freedom and peace is, of course, what I'm doing. One of the things that I'm doing is, of course, being a ham radio operator. I'm invested in terms of having radios. I'm invested in the time that I spend on the radio, all these types of things. When you go back to the mandate of the feminist plantation state, I am violating every mandate of the feminist plantation state because I am deemed as a slave, and therefore my investment in my freedom and peace and what is under the umbrella of that freedom and peace is in violation of the feminist plantation state. So again, my expenditures on radios, my expenditures on software, on computers, on whatever I'm doing in regards to the ham radio hobby, my time that I spend on the radio, all of that is illegal in terms of the feminist plantation state because I should be invested into a woman's life. I have to have a woman in my life. And so on the other side of this, there is the desperation that women are facing. They see a man like me and they see that I have these radios. They see the desperation of things that they're doing not working. Like, for instance, women trying to get into gyms for the purpose of interfering and infiltrating into men's lives. That is basically game over now because men are going out and they are either building home gyms or they are getting together with other men and building a gym where no women are allowed because the gym businesses themselves cannot say all men because that would be deemed as illegal by the feminist plantation state. So that again, those men that are doing that, they are violating the mandates and the dictates of the feminist plantation state by building their own home gyms or getting together and renting a place and having a gym where all men are permitted but women are not permitted. That again is a violation because they are not investing in the energy of women, the interference, the infiltration. And it is the same with me as a ham radio operator. I am investing in the technology, the capabilities to be a ham radio operator. And I am, because of that, in violation of every mandate and edict of the feminist plantation state. So for instance, I should be spending the money that I'm spending on radios and technology on a single mother. I should be going out and dealing with a single mother. So my brothers, what I'm saying to you again, there is amped up desperation in terms of feminists, in terms of the feminist plantation state to get you back as a slave. And what I'm saying to you, my brothers, is not to put you in a state of paranoia, but put you in a state of awareness that anything and everything can be used against you to cause you to lose your freedom and your peace. And that is why you must diligently protect what is rightfully yours. That is, again, your freedom and peace as a MGTOW man. So getting back to the desperation of feminists, the feminist plantation state, and women in general, it is now a matter wherein we men close one door and women opening another door. So, for instance, if you take again the example of men getting out of the public gyms and going and building their own home gyms or renting a place where they have a male-only space, that is a closed door to women. Women cannot go to those places where men are at and do what they do in terms of harassing men, putting men on TikTok, calling them Pharaoh because they just glanced over at them. That door is pretty much being closed by we men. So that leaves women with fewer and fewer options for them to interfere with or infiltrate into men's lives. And those options become limited to the types of things that we men would normally think that women would not get into, but yet again, because of the desperation, because of the need to have men involved with that now narcissistic feminine energy, women are doing everything they can to get we men back to the fold, so to speak, to get we men back into the feminist plantation state where we can be slaves. So that is what I am encouraging you, my brothers, to watch out for, that anything and everything is subject to this type of activity from women. And because of what is going on, it is going to get worse, because part of what is going on due to the losses that women are facing, due to the desperation, all these types of things, there is a great narcissistic collapse that is happening with women. And so all those things become factors into what is going on. So essentially, you are going to see things that you never thought women would do, in my opinion, going forward, because of, again, what is happening to them. And part of what is driving that desperation, the narcissistic collapse, all these things boil down to women not taking accountability for their actions, for what has happened to them, to we men, because of feminism. And my brothers, it is now time for women to take accountability for their actions. We should not have to take accountabilities for their actions. We have the right to be free from their feminine energy, which is destructive in nature to our very lives. We men deserve our peace. We deserve our freedom, my brothers. And so what I am trying to do, again, is to not establish a state of paranoia within the MGTOW community, but to establish a state of awareness of these things are going to happen to we men. And so what I'm saying, again, it is you, we as MGTOW men must be aware of these things and why we must protect our freedom and peace at all costs. Because again, it is the great, great danger of what will happen to you, we as MGTOW men if we do not protect our freedom, if we do not protect our peace, because what will result from our not doing our due diligence in protecting our freedom and protecting our peace is slavery, my brothers. With that, I will close this podcast out. But my brothers, again, be diligent in your walk along the MGTOW pathway. And that diligence is protecting what is precious to you, what is rightfully yours. And that is, again, your freedom and peace. This is the MGTOW Infinium, and this has been an Infinium podcast. My MGTOW brothers, always remember that you have the right to be free in every way possible because you are free men.